I recently managed to play Alan Wake in its remastered version for the PS5. After hearing so much about the game, I was curious to see if it lived up to the hype, and it did. It was clear that it is a game from another age, but the story and its core concepts were mesmerizing. Sadly, the story ended in a cliffhanger, and for long years we didn't hear of a sequel. After so many years, Alan Wake 2 was announced and released. The studio behind it really hyped it up before its release. So, is Alan Wake 2 worth the wait? Let's find out. Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy and this is my non-spoiler review for Alan Wake 2 for the PS5. The game was developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Epic Games. So let's start with the story. Alan Wake 2 takes place 13 years after the first game, and it follows the story of FBI agent Saga Anderson, who is investigating a series of murders that have led her and her partner Alex Casey to Bright Falls. There, they encounter some supernatural incidents tying the murders to the missing writer known as Alan Wake. Now it is up to you to investigate and solve the mystery that is behind it all. It is important to point out that the game has two main characters, Saga Anderson and Alan Wake, and you get to play as both of them. The game tells its story through in-engine voice-acted cutscenes, live-action cutscenes, documents and information that you find around the areas, and voice-acted pages written by Alan Wake. The story is full of mystery since the very beginning, and it has a thriller, horror, dark atmosphere. So let's talk about the visuals of this game. This game goes for some very hyper-realistic looking graphics, mixed in with live action cutscenes. Character models are hyper detailed and look like real people. There's a lot of detail in the textures, atmosphere, particles, lighting effects that really helps to create an incredible atmosphere. In terms of performance, the game features quality mode and performance mode. If you play in quality mode, the game runs at 30 FPS with a resolution of 4K, and if you play in performance mode like I did, the game runs at 1440p resolution at 60 frames per second. The 60 frames are very consistent, but there are some frame rate drops in some areas. Most of the time, you won't even notice it, and it won't affect your gameplay. So let's talk about the music in this game. I have to say, the audio design in this game is incredible. In regards to the music specifically, it's very atmospheric and generates a lot of tension. There are a lot of songs with lyrics that appear at different points in the game and that were written specifically for this game that are incredible, and some of them are included in sections of the game that are extremely memorable. In terms of the audio mixing, it's superb. The way certain sounds mix in with the atmospheric music and the way it transitions by lowering or raising the volume, it's executed excellently.
The job is unfinished.
That seems pretty complicated to me. What was this guy doing skinny dipping at this time of year?
Haven't figured that part out yet.
Lots of questions.
Lots of answers for us to find.
I didn't know trees got...
There's a piece of paper on the ground. Tracks. Barefoot. Nightingales? They come out from under the boulder.
It makes no sense.
A page full of text on one side. Not a printout. Written with a typewriter. Old school. Lines scratched out and edits added with a pen.
Like a manuscript. Page of a story. The killer left a message.
It's for us. The text is about us. The victim was one of their own. FBI Special Agent Robert Nightingale. And then there was the page they found. The first step down into terrifying depths.
Reading the words. These words felt like a message. Someone knew they were here, someone playing a game with them. An invitation. How could they not accept?
Even if they knew it would end up hurting them. Someone's been watching us.
Playing a sick game with us.
You were right. This is right up my alley.
So let's talk about the gameplay. Alan Wake 2 is an action-adventure horror game with over-the-shoulder camera. The gameplay is focused on story, exploration, puzzle solving, and fighting. So let's start with the structure of the game. This game has a very particular approach to its structure. The game is divided into two campaigns that are intertwined, Saga's and Alan Wake's. The sections that you play as Saga are a little bit different from the sections that you play as Alan Wake. Saga's section take place in Bright Falls and Alan Wake's take place in the Dark Place. I'll start off by first explaining the things that they have in common in regards to exploration. Areas in this game are very open, almost like a sandbox that you can explore with relative freedom. As you progress through the story, new sections of these areas will become available, and you can find maps that can help you navigate these areas. As you explore, you will have objectives that you can check at any time to know what you need to do. You will find documents and manuscript pages which are key to the story and to guide your exploration. You can also find stashes with resources and other items that you can use to upgrade your abilities or your weapons, and you can even find new weapons. As you explore, you will occasionally find puzzles. These puzzles require you to explore the surrounding areas to find the items or clues to solve them. The important thing is that they aren't too hard to solve and that they are very interesting. And all of these exploration elements are tied by one important aspect of the game, the mind place. At any point, you can press the pad in the controller and instantaneously you will find yourself in a cabin where you have all your manuscripts, documents, and clues that you have found. This is the mind place. The mind place is literally a mental visualization that the character has created to organize things in his or her mind, and it's manifested differently for Alan Wake and for Saga. I'll start off by explaining Saga's mind place. In Saga's case, the mind place has more of a noir feel to it. Here, the character organizes objectives of the game into case files. These files are in regards to main quests or side quests. These are placed as photos on a wall, and as you explore, you will get new clues and elements that will manifest in the mind place as photos or text that you can combine. You can pair the photos and the text to generate different threads of thoughts contained within these cases. All of these represent the main character's analysis of these cases. Once you complete the elements of certain threads, new information arises as the protagonist analyzes and reaches new conclusions in regards to what's happening in the story. You will also get information regarding certain characters in the story, and this will allow you to explore the profiling, which is similar to the case files. In the profiling, the threads are related to questions regarding those characters that the protagonist is investigating. Here she visualizes what they are thinking. And all of these elements are important because it's part of the gameplay loop. You explore, you find clues, documents, and manuscript. You go into the mind place, add these elements to the case analysis into the profiling. The protagonist analyzes and reaches new conclusions, and this allows you to advance the story forward. In other words, there are moments where the story cannot advance or that you won't know what to do next until you complete aspects in the mind place. Most of these aspects apply almost the same to Alan Wake's side. Just as I explained with Saga, in the case of Alan Wake, you will explore and you will find elements that you will have to interact with in the mind place. The difference is that in the case of Alan Wake, these elements are not visualized as case files, they are visualized as stories and plot points that you can interact with. The way he organizes the information in the mind place is that he finds what he calls scenes, which are certain sections within the areas that you're exploring, and he finds or elaborates plot elements. These plot elements can be combined with the different scenes to generate changes in the environment. And that's a key aspect of Alan Wake's gameplay section. Another aspect that's important in Alan Wake's section is that he has a mechanic where he can capture light and transfer it to another place, and this too causes changes in the environment. In that sense, The sections where you play as Alan Wake in the dark place are very trippy, and you need to pay a lot of attention because it can get very confusing very fast. So let's talk about the fighting in this game. If I was to compare the fighting in this game to another game, I would compare it to Resident Evil Remake 2. The gameplay takes place from an over-the-shoulder perspective. You obviously will have to explore, find resources because resources are very limited in this game, and you have to be very selective as to when to engage with enemies and when to not engage. You can shoot with your weapon, hit with melee attacks to stun or push away enemies that get too close, and you can also dodge. You have a flashlight which you can use against enemies too. You have a quick menu to which you can assign weapons and items, and you acquire weapons by exploring and completing puzzles, and these can be upgraded. You also have some very limited inventory space that can be expanded by finding certain items or doing certain things. And you will find at save points what they call shoe boxes, which are basically boxes where you can put items to store them away for later. And you can access them at any shoebox. Usually, enemy encounters require that you first use your flashlight by boosting its light and aiming at enemies to take away their darkness shield. Once this happens, you can harm them. Using the boost mechanic with the flashlight consumes batteries, which is one of your resources. Enemies usually come in groups and can take a few hits, so you will have to be mindful of the distance between them and you. If they get close and attack, you will have to dodge. You unlock passive abilities that can improve aspects of gameplay during fights. In Saga's case, you can also equip charms that add certain effects to her. In terms of enemy design, you will be fighting mainly the Taken, which are the main enemies that you will find. They are always human but can be represented in different ways, and they manage to be very scary because of how they look and the shadows and blur effects that are applied to them. Alan Wake 2 is a pretty hefty game and takes around 20 hours to complete depending on how fast you play through the game. So let's talk about the pros and the cons of this game. I'm gonna start off with the cons because I only have one. I guess my main issue with the game was the pacing. And the pacing was affected mainly by two things. The first one is that the game is divided into two campaigns that are intertwined, Saga's and Alan Wake's. Each of their scenarios has a very distinct feel, where Saga's feels more grounded and Resident Evil-like, and Alan Wake's feels more trippy, twisted, and almost Silent Hill-like. You don't choose when to play as one character or the other. It's already established by the story structure and it is interspersed. In general, this works in the game's favor because it keeps the story interesting and never gets boring. However, it affects the pacing of the story in many ways. To me, it was a little bit difficult to get acclimated to both sides of the stories because you keep changing from one side to the other, and the feel of each one and the pacing of each one is very different. The other thing affecting the pacing was the mind plays mechanic. This gameplay aspect is intrinsically linked to the gameplay loop. Because of this, the player is forced to stop exploring and complete gameplay aspects of the mind plays. At first, this is very interesting, but later it can become a little bit annoying. So let's talk about the pros of this game. I'll be honest, this game has so many incredible things that I had to pick and choose which ones to talk about, and I'll be brief about it. First of all, the visuals. This game is a cinematic masterpiece. The cinematography is outstanding, the graphics look incredible, and the way they combine live action cutscenes with in-engine cutscenes, it's incredible, and it really sticks the landing. And secondly, the story. The story of this game is interesting, mesmerizing, complex, and the presentation, oh my god, it's breathtaking. So in conclusion, Alan Wake 2 was without a doubt worth the wait and a Game of the Year contender. Despite it having some pacing problems, the game manages to deliver some of the most unique and memorable story, gameplay sequences, and music that I have ever seen in a game. It blurs the lines between video games and cinema in a way that is mesmerizing and mind-blowing. For this reason, I highly recommend Alan Wake 2 for the PS5. So that's gonna be it for my non-spoiler review. The link to the game's page will be in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
welcome back to the show. So, Alan, as the creator of the character, how do you feel about this?
Sorry, what?
I know it can be an awkward question with the man sitting right next to you, but I mean, how do you feel about him in the role of Casey? Does he look the part to you?
He looks exactly like I always imagined Casey to be. It's uncanny.
Thank you. That means so much to me. I'm a huge fan of your books.
So, what's the problem, Alan? Because on more than one occasion, you voiced your reservations about the adaptations.
It's not that. They're their own thing. They've gone with choices that are different from mine. I feel protective about my stories, and these adaptations... I don't know. I guess I just wish I could have been more involved in making them.
Well, in that case, you won't have seen this either. We have a clip from the new film, Murder Case Casey. Should we roll it, or do you want to say something first, Sam?
Nah, just roll it.
Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our content.